Ossetru, A Native European Spirituality by Stephen McMillan. Chapter 11. Many Gods, Many Peoples. All native religions arise from the soul of a particular people. They express that people's relationship with the divine, with each other, and with the world around them. Such religions are an intimate product of the group's total experience as a distinct people, and can only be transferred to other peoples in the most superficial sense. Some religious systems claim to be the one true faith of all mankind. Christianity is one such belief. It combines elements from Judaism, Egyptian religion, Gnosticism, and other sources, and has the nerve to lay claim to the devotion of all humanity. Islam makes the same error. Judaism, interestingly, claims only to be the way of the Jewish people, but still considers the Jewish people to be the chosen people of the one true God. We call religions of this sort universal, because they try to encompass the whole world under one faith. Adherents of native religions know that this whole approach is wrong. There is no one religion for all the world, nor should there be. The various branches of humanity arose under different conditions, underwent different experiences, and have their own unique way of being in the world. It is only right that we should approach the divine in the manner native to our own branch of the human family, in the way of our own ancestors. To claim that there is, or can be, or even should be a universal religion flies in the face of our genuine diversity. Obviously, that is not a judgment for or against any particular native religion. All native religions are valid. Indeed, they are the very best religions possible for the people of whose essence they spring. My ancestral religion is definitely best for me. The Sioux religion is definitely best for the Sioux. God is red. The idea that there is a built-in connection between specific groups and their religion is hearsay in today's world. But the proposal was not a new one. The various Indian nations have long claimed that their religions are proprietary, that they belong to the tribes in question, and should not be transferred to outsiders. This issue revolves around the presence of a new tribe, the Wannabes, who wanna be Indians. These are men and women, usually of European descent, who adopted Indian religion and culture. Peace pipes and smudge sticks are sold in New Age bookstores. Dream catchers are even more ambiguous. They clutter the checkout counter at the local dollar store and dangle from rearview mirrors of millions of automobiles. Non-Indians make big money sponsoring sweat lodge experiences, drumming sessions, and vision quests. Perhaps the worst abusers are the sun dances done on AstroTurf and the sex orgies conducted under the guise of Cherokee tribal ritual. Many Indians are angry about this, stating correctly that this is their religion, the way of their ancestors, and that it is not for outsiders. People of all races and cultures are genuinely welcome at powwows, but participation in tribal ceremonies is something else altogether. There comes a point when whites are politely told to go away, that it is time for private matters at which only Indians are welcome. Some Indians are more forceful, turning New Agers away from sacred sites, overturning their teepees and passing out flyers denouncing cultural genocide. At the Lakota Summit 5 in June 1993, about 500 representatives from 40 different tribes and bands unanimously passed the Declaration of War against exploiters of Lakota spirituality. Mohawk newspaper editor Doug George commented, "If you look back far enough, you'll see the Celts and the Anglos and the Saxons and the Jutes all have similar rituals of thanksgiving based on the cycles of the moon and the growing seasons of the earth. That is what needs to be revived. Maybe we can use this as a kind of spiritual judo. When people come to you with a desperate need to know more, just turn that around and say the solution is within your own self. The solution is your own community." Drinking from our own well. Many Ossetrua are with us today because an Indian suggested that they look at the way of their European ancestors rather than clinging to Native American religion and culture. My friend Stephen is one such person. Here is his story. In 1975, I was at a powwow on the Rosebud Sioux Indian Reservation in South Dakota. My girlfriend and I and another couple had been there for a couple of days enjoying the dancing, drumming and craft work. I had struck up a conversation earlier with a gentleman who turned out to be one of the Sioux elders who had helped organise the event. Later on that evening, he came over to me and asked me if I had a good time. I answered yes, very much so. Then he said, "I'm glad to hear that, but you'll now have to leave." Afraid that I had violated some rule or committed a social faux pas of some kind, I asked why. He replied, "Because we're about to perform a religious ceremony, and it's only for Indians." I replied that I understood. As we were walking away, he walked beside me. At the entrance, he put his hand on my shoulder, smiled, and said to me, "You're not going to find what you're looking for here. You need to drink from your own well." I shook his hand and left. It would be another 20 years before I would understand what he had meant by his statement. I had discovered Edred Thorson's A Book of Troth in a bookstore, and I was reading through it when the Sioux elder's words came back to me and struck me like a thunderbolt. This was it. I was finally drinking from my own well. I had found my way home. Another friend, Ed, had this story to tell. I was talking with a family counsellor who happened to also be a Hopi medicine woman. In the course of our conversation, I mentioned that I admired a Native American culture and wanted to study the wisdom of her spiritual path. Looking at me with a little smile in her eyes, she asked, "Do you have any Indian in you?" Pausing for only a moment, I replied that no, I was just about 100% German. Her response was immediate. "Honey, the Indian way is my way, not yours. Here, let me show you some people who can help." She put me in contact with the Ossetru Folk Assembly, and I've been here ever since. The wisdom of Vine Deloria. Vine Deloria of the Standing Rock Sioux Nation was a man of courage, humour, and vision. I was privileged to exchange letters with him, but unfortunately I never got to meet him in person. As a distinguished Indian activist, author, and theologian, Deloria wrote more than 20 books on the history and the plight of his people. One of his most important works was God is Red, in which he eloquently suggested that different groups should naturally have different religions. Here are some quotes from that book. The idea that religion was conceived as originally designed for a specific people relating to a specific God falls well within the experience of the rest of mankind and may conceivably be considered a basic factor in the existence of religion. Perhaps a religious universality cannot be successfully maintained across racial and ethnic lines. Ethnicity will almost always triumph. Most tribal religions make no pretense as to their universality. The very concept of a chosen people implies a lost religious ethnicity. Most probably, religions do not in fact cross national and ethnic lines without losing their power and identity. It is probably more in the nature of things to have different groups with different religions. This concept extends far beyond both Ossetru and American Indian belief, encompassing all native religions as a general principle. In 1995, I sent Dr. Deloria some material on Ossetru, and he sent me this letter in return. "Dear Stephen, thank you for your letter and the materials on Ossetru. I applaud this movement and your organisation for taking the initiative in bringing back the traditional European religious beliefs and practices." Referring to wannabes. "To tell you the truth, these New Agers just look silly even when they try very hard to perform Indian ceremonies. I have always felt sorry for them. It would be like me dressing up in Roman Catholic cardinal costumes and swinging pots of incense in the air. But they are very hard to discourage, particularly when American culture teaches that if you are sincere, you can do anything you want. I will certainly refer people to your organisation. Good luck with your endeavours. I hope your movement grows so that we don't have too many part Cherokees hanging around our communities. With best wishes, Vine Deloria Jr. Genetics and beyond. So what factor is it that links us, any of us, European, Asian, African, or whatever, with the way of our ancestors? It's not just culture. I've seen a Tibetan teen in India wearing a t-shirt emblazoned with a portrait of a rap performer and sporting plastic bling around his neck. An Irish-American youth imitating Mexican farm workers. No, there's something deeper than culture. Something that is an essential part of who we are, that ties us to those who have gone before us. Genetics provides part of the answer. Most people know that superficial features like hair and eye colour are determined by hereditary. What few realise, however, is that less tangible qualities are also passed on genetically. Intelligence, temperament, values, and reactions to basic sensory stimuli are also partly inherited. According to one study, even political party preference is to some extent hereditable. Of course, this doesn't mean that there's a Republican or a Democrat gene, but that certain underlying traits of temperament and worldview can be passed on through hereditary. Our genetics, that are a very special gift from the ancestors, is a powerful thing. But there is more to all this than genetics. Past a certain point, DNA is incapable of explaining the strange things we find. Studies of identical twins raised apart yield coincidences that baffle investigators. These twins often possess the same obscure habits, unusual things like wearing rubber bands on their wrists and habitually popping them. Sometimes their lives are strangely parallel. They may marry people with the same names or the same birthdays and own pets with the same names, things that are very unlikely to be influenced by genetics as we know it. There is an invisible bond that connects people who are genetically similar, a bond of mind and soul that is beyond genetics. That is metagenetic. I wrote an article in 1985 with the title Metagenetics, and made significant additions in a 1999 article called Genetics and Beyond, the Ultimate Connection. In this latter piece, I defined metagenetics as the hypothesis that there are spiritual or metaphysical implications to physical relatedness among humans which correlate with but go beyond the known limit of genetics. It comes down to this. We are, of course, connected to all of humanity and indeed all of life, but we are not connected equally. A mysterious law of similarity dictates that we will be most closely linked to people with whom we share a genetic bond. The ties that bind us are not accidental, nor are they dependent on our external environment. Our bonds are genetic, and beyond that, metagenetic. This truth has profound religious significance. Indigenous religions place emphasis on their ancestors and on the identity of the group. And also true, as the story of Rig reminds us, we know that the gods themselves are among those ancestors. The idea that there should be different groups with different religions no longer seems strange. Indeed, it becomes inescapable. The folk. The word folk is vital to understanding the revival of Asatru in the modern age. In Old Icelandic, folk is translated as people, or people of a household, kinfolk, crowd of people, or host. That is, an armed group of people. This word is used to denote many different degrees of closeness, from one's immediate family to much larger and more general groups of people. Modern Asatru uses this term to mean several different things. On the smaller scale, we might use it to refer to the Asatru at a specific gathering or attending a particular ritual. We would say, for example, that the folk passed the horn and toasted the memory of their departed friend. In this case, the folk are local people, men and women pledged to the holy powers, who know each other personally. On a larger scale, we speak of the totality of all who follow our ancestral faith as being the folk. This would include Asatruas in Texas, Norway, Rhode Island, or wherever they might be on Earth, or beyond it, since someday there will be Asatru on other planets. We can also use the term Osafolk when we speak of all adherents to the native Germanic religion. All Asatru of whatever denomination constitute the folk within. By this we mean that they are consciously following the native beliefs of the Germanic people and metaphorically stand within our ranks. They are aware of their ancestral religion and are busy practicing it. But what about all those men and women who share our ancestry but not our faith? What about all the Germans and Scandinavians who are Lutherans, or the atheists and Buddhists and Scientologists whose blood harkens back to our native lands, but who do not know or care about their heritage? How do they fit into this, and what do we owe them? They are the folk without. Those who share our essence, and thus are also related to the gods, but who stand outside our ranks. We are nevertheless connected to them, and we owe them a high degree of concern and loyalty. One of our obligations is to let them know that their native belief is alive and well, and that it is an option for them if they are interested. If this seems ethnocentric, well, so it is. All native religions are by definition centered on a particular ethnos, and to deny this fact or to claim that it should be otherwise is to be politically correct to the point of blindness. There's nothing wrong with ethnocentricity. People with healthy instincts naturally prefer their own family. ethnocentricity does not imply hostility or negativity to anyone outside the group. It simply means that one gives kin first priority. Properly understood, the kinship bonds such as those found in Asatru and other native religions should only enhance, not lessen, our respectful attitude towards others. A basic law of life is this: love your own and respect others unless they demonstrate by their actions that they are not worthy of your respect. The gods and their folk. I think of the holy powers and we, their sons and daughters, as being somehow part of the same thing. This hypothesis is intuitive, speculative, and personal. It is also very hard to verbalize. The closest I can come is this. Think of some shape, a sphere or a cube, for example, that has more dimensions than the three spatial dimensions of length, width, and height that we can perceive. Let's say that some parts of the sphere or cube are visible in our world, while other parts remain invisible to us because they project into higher dimensions. The gods and goddesses are like those higher dimensional parts of us, and we are like the part visible in the three-dimensional space. In a sense, the gods are our representatives in Asgard, and we are their representatives in Midgard. We are connected. We are part of the same thing. They depend on us, and we depend on them. Most modern people think that religion is just a matter of choice, that, as Vine Deloria said, if you are sincere, you can do anything you want. They might get up tomorrow morning, look in the mirror while they're brushing their teeth and say to themselves, you know, I think I'll take up Amazonian shamanism this week. Can they do that? Of course, this is a free country, at least in these trivial ways, and you and I can adopt any religion that catches our fancy. It's easy. You go on the internet and you read some articles, and then you find someone who teaches some classes and you're in. No one will think less of you for it. But even if you have the right, is it really the right thing to do? Most people never stop to think that there might be a way that is best for them because it reflects what they are, a member of a specific group of people sharing common descent, a group connected in powerful ways by culture, hereditary and metagenetics, a group bound by blood to a particular set of gods and goddesses. Religion should not be like a hat or a coat that you find in a store, take a liking to and decide to purchase. Rather, it should be like your arm or your head, a part of who you are from birth. The gods and their people are one.